Luginbill. Whoa. Good morning. SEC Insider Hit brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go local, go with the home team. We're ESPN 105.9 The Zone, the Out of Bounds Show. Want to say good morning, welcome in to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a fun day. Enjoying the Super Bowl, and Philadelphia Eagles dominate the Kansas City Chiefs. And that Eagles D, they were the MVP. Longtime NFL assistant, Vic Fangio. He's the toast of football coast to coast. They were awesome. And that Eagles defensive front dominated Mahomes and Reed and the crew, and allowed the Philadelphia Eagles offense to shine. But we're live in the Bank Plus studio, and our Super Bowl coverage is brought to you by Stella Artois. We want to welcome in our friend Tom Luginbill with ESPN. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. How about those Philadelphia Eagles, man?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that doesn't change in the sport of football. If you win up front, you're going to win a lot of games.
Mm-hmm. Eagles D-line dominated, Luke's. Dominated.
It was unbelievable. I mean, clearly the choice to rush 4, drop 7, and the belief and the confidence that you could control Patrick Mahomes in a 4-man rush. I don't even know if anybody's really ever attempted that before.
Well, that's a good point, and a lot of these guys, you've covered them. But how about Josh Sweat and what he did coming off the edge all night, Luke?
So, great story on him. Josh Sweat, the year he came out of high school, was our number 1 ranked overall player in the class. He gets hurt his senior year, bad knee injury, like really bad knee injury. Goes to Florida State and just could never get healthy. The injury was so bad, he just couldn't get right. And finally, towards the latter part of his senior year, he started to gain some momentum and started to kind of look like the player that everybody thought he was going to be. It's so funny you asked me about him, because I was texting my staff last night and just kind of saying, God, how neat for Josh Sweat. Because it went from looking like there was going to be this ability level that would never materialize to him dominating the Super Bowl.
Wow. 6 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3 QB hits, 2 tackles for a loss. That would be Josh Sweat, who Luginbill and them had number 1. And I had no idea until Luke just told us this. Evidently, this young man had a devastating injury his senior year in high school. Goes to FSU, kind of figures it out late, and he's 7 years into the league, Luke.
Yeah, I know. And, when you watched him, his injury was bad, and I'll tell you how good he was. We didn't drop him from the number 1 spot. We kept him there. We felt like if this guy recovers from his injury, he's going to be a Jadeveon Clowney type of player. Like if he gets on track. And finally he did. It just took a little while.
Yeah. All right, do you remember, let's throw out some others. I know you'll remember some of these guys. Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, and Jalix Hunt.
And Carter?
Yes, and Carter. So let's talk about more of, Vic Fangio did an unbelievable job with this group coming up with this game plan. As you know, you've been a coach and a player. And you've been evaluating for years. So Fangio was unbelievable. These guys knew what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it. Talk about evaluating some of these other D linemen out of high school and calling their games in college and seeing them win the Super Bowl last night, Luke.
So if I recall correctly, and again, I didn't know you were going to ask me this question, but Jalen Carter was either our number 1 or our number 2 ranked defensive tackle Jordan Davis was in the ESPN 300, but he was more of a true two-gapper, not necessarily an every-down guy. We ended up probably being a little bit wrong there because he's been much more disruptive than your normal just two-gap guy as a defensive tackle. You mentioned Josh Sweat, but again, it's the same story no matter what level of football you're playing. I mean, we talk about it all the time, right? Championship teams are built from the inside out. And you look at the run game and the offensive lines of Philadelphia, you look at that defensive front, and you go outward from there. They're so dominant that no wonder they were put in that position to play like that last night.
Mahomes, it just goes to show you, as great as he is, from the jump, they look discombobulated and shocked, and they just, you could tell walking to the sideline, they had no answers to what was going on.
None. No answers. And listen, sometimes that happens. I don't think they expected to see as much post-snap movement in the secondary, because when you decide not to rush Patrick Mahomes, you really have the opportunity to cloud the picture on the back end. And that's where I thought they just did a remarkable job of just giving him different looks. And then when it wasn't a clean look, the walls started closing in, and that's when the defensive front took over.
He is Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN. And he has called the games of many of the players that played last night and throughout the NFL playoffs. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. And our big game coverage is brought to you by Stella Artois. All right, well, let's go over to the offensive side of the football. By the defense giving them so many unbelievable opportunities and shutting down the Kansas City Chiefs offense, it gave the Eagles offense momentum, and they took advantage. Credit to Kellen, Hurts, AJ, and all of them. They went ahead and put the hammer down after the Eagles D teed them up. Luke?
And they really couldn't run the ball very effectively. That wasn't the game plan everybody expected, and that was to just, lean on Saquon Barkley. And so I was really impressed with the poise of Jalen Hurts, how he conducted himself, how he carried himself, wasn't phased. His downfield throws outside of the numbers were sensational. I was sitting there watching that game, and obviously it was a dud of a game. We all know that, but I'm watching the game, and I thought to myself, I wonder if you asked Nick Saban privately if he ever saw any inkling that Jalen Hurts could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I wonder what he'd say.
No.
This is a guy that was benched for ineffectiveness in the SEC championship game. Was it the SEC championship game or the national championship? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, no, it was the national title game, and then Tua threw the walk-off.
Correct. Okay. So, you got to kind of wonder. What a remarkable. Then he ends up transferring. Think about that storyline. And then he gets drafted. I think it was in the second round. I think a lot of people kept scratching their head going, ooh, second rounder, really? And then look at what he's accomplished. It's pretty remarkable.
It's unbelievable. All right, so how do you – the NFL, well, it's now college football is like this with rosters, but you can't three-peat. It's so difficult to win in the league. I can't wait to see how the Chiefs react to this, Luke. Just because some guys are getting older, some guys will move on, some guys. They're talking about Kelsey, how much longer he'll play. He's a great player, but aren't you going to be fascinated to see how they react to this? Getting embarrassed?
Well, yeah, getting their nose bloodied and getting embarrassed and losing in that fashion is not something they're accustomed to. I think it's different with professional football players and men as a job than maybe it is when this happens collegiately with younger players and bigger rosters and less maturity. But a lot of the question is too in the off season, what are their free agent moves? You know, New Cockins is getting older. Kelsey's getting older. Xavier Worthy looks like he's, got a chance to be a star coming up here. Still fairly young defense. So I think that Patrick Mahomes is such a competitor.
Yeah.
And he's so gifted that his leadership will carry a lot of weight in recovering from this type of game. But it was shocking. I mean, he's out there, and you kind of just, I don't know about you, like, I kind of just kept waiting for that. Well, they're going to jump out of nowhere here, and they're going to get a big one. And the next thing you know, this is going to be 17-7. And then they're somehow going to get the ball back, and they're going to kick a field goal. It's going to be 17-10. And then we're going to get into the second half. I was chuckling to myself last night going, boy, I would have hated to spend my advertising dollars in the fourth quarter.
Oh.
If I was buying a commercial. And by the way, who designed Fox's graphics? The 6-year-old? That is the worst.
Did we lose Luginbill? Okay. All right. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. The Gremlins got Tom Luginbill, but he was talking about Fox's graphics. Some of y'all commented on Tom Brady calling the game and how he missed a couple of things. He did, and that's okay. He's, he's done a good job. He did have a couple of mishaps. All in all, he's going to be a fantastic broadcaster. Look, Greg Olson's awesome. It doesn't mean that Tom has to be bad. Olson's playing and operating at the top of his game, and he's probably the best out there. But Kevin Burkhardt is an absolute pro who was play-by-play. I thought some of Brady's stories were good because he could tell you about losing to the Giants and the Eagles and also winning. And I thought he dropped some nuggets in there and did it in a way that, for us, it gave us a little relatability as the game was unfolding. He's like, man, I've been here on the biggest stage. I've had my heart ripped out, and I've been up on that stage celebrating. And I've run the gamut, winning with the Patriots and Buccaneers and losing the big game. And how, look, even though Mahomes has 3, it's devastating last night and this morning. And same with Kelsey and Chris Jones and others. So, but I think Brady's going to be fine. He's going to end up being a good, he's putting in the work, and he knows the game. We know that. And I think all in all, he did a pretty damn good job for his first Super Bowl. Nobody does the Super Bowl like New Orleans. Even Wendy, who was watching the game, was like, do they always act like this? Or like the crowd? I went, no. I mean, if that thing's in SoFi Stadium, it's static. If that thing's down in Miami, it's static. But in New Orleans, y'all all know, you've all been there. There's something about the vibe, and when you get down there, the energy and the party, and it just hits different in the Big Easy and New Orleans. So we are the Out of Bounds Show, live in the Bank Plus studio. Big game coverage brought to you by Stella Artois. Pairs well with wings or a burger. Or a fried shrimp po' boy. I was in New Orleans Wednesday and Thursday, and we did shows there, and it was awesome. New Orleans hits different. Crowds don't act like that I've been to a Super Bowl. It's very corporate. Crowds don't act like they do in New Orleans. If that thing's in L.A., it's just kind of a Miami. But there's something about the juice in New Orleans, as we all know, only being 2.5 hours away. We welcome Tom Luginbill back in with the ESPN. And
sorry, buddy.
Hey, dude. So, all right, go ahead with the Fox graphics. You were just about to say something.
Sorry, I told you yesterday I'd be driving. I went through a bad patch. No, and then the TV gods obviously struck me and cut my phone off for criticizing another television channel's graphics. But did that not look like it was public access television? Did it not look cheap? It was terrible.
Well, all right. So what did you think about Tom Brady calling the game?
Let's just say this. I thought it was not one of the better broadcasted games, Super Bowl or otherwise, that I've seen or heard.
Okay, I thought some of his stories relating to either winning or losing Super Bowls were good, but you thought all in all, play to play, he's got some more work and development to do.
I think so. Listen, we're talking about the single greatest player in the history of the game, but broadcasting is a different animal. And I thought it was odd, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but did you notice when Kevin Burkhardt would specifically ask him questions, he'd have a hard time answering them. Mm-hmm. Like, he'd have a hard time giving, pretty quick and smart answers to a lot of the things that I felt Kevin was teeing him up on. That's just my 2 cents. I thought the halftime show was boring. I don't know about you. It just didn't seem like a great Super Bowl to me. I don't know. From the moment it came on TV and I looked at the lower third score bug on the graphic, I was like, what are we doing?
All right, so and I get that, and a lot of it was because the game was so, it was over so early. Yeah, it didn't make other things compelling, and I get that. I mean, Kansas City had a goose egg on the board forever, and they almost went into halftime. Until they scored late with, I don't know what it was, 3.5 minutes to go in the second quarter when they scored. So now that we've got Hurts is still young, Mahomes is still young, Josh Allen, Burrow. I mean, we got all these guys that still have a lot more runway. And now
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, no doubt, Lamar Jackson. Yeah. These guys, now that the Chiefs have been disrupted, we might have a little bit of a reset here, but with Kellen Moore going to the Saints, we'll see how that looks. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. Have you ever run across Kellen Moore or have any interaction at Boise State or otherwise with him, Luginbill?
No, just covered him as a player when he was a player when I was getting into broadcasting. Obviously, I mean, when you actually break it down and you look at his college career, he was decorated, but as far as one of the most accomplished players in the history of the game, like, you go back and you look at him statistically and the amount of games that he won, it's unbelievable. I mean, he's in a very, very select group.
Yeah, and they were phenomenal. And then he had one of the best.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
He had one of the best college football coaches in the history of college football. He didn't win one, but Chris Peterson, as you know, I'm sure you had some interactions with him.
Oh, yeah, I know Chris well. And Dan Hawkins as well. I did TV with Dan Hawkins for 3 or 4 years.
That's right. Did Hawkins go to Colorado after Boise? Is that right?
Yeah, he made the Colorado curse. Colorado mistake.
Yes.
That's what the coaches used to call it.
Because he was rolling it. Houston Nutt was there for 1 year, I think, and went to Arkansas.
It was the first year that Boise State had gone from 1AA to FBS. It was 1998 when Houston was there. Okay.
And Dan Hawkins gets that thing rolling. Takes the Colorado job, and then Chris Peterson comes in and takes it to another level. And
so it was Dirk Cutter.
Okay.
Then it was Dan Hawkins. Coach Pete was working as the offensive coordinator under Dan Hawkins.
Okay.
Hawk goes to Colorado. Peterson takes over and even elevates it further.
Okay. You know, he kind of pulled a Bob Stoops. He bailed out, not bailed out, excuse me. He decided to hang it up, which is great for him, when he still had 10 to 15 years of coaching left. And most guys just can't do that, as you know, Tom, being in the business and as a coach's son.
Well, number one, I think he was exhausted, and he was starting to see what the sport in college athletics was becoming, with really the infant stages of the transfer portal, the NCAA case. I just think he saw the sport becoming something he didn't want to be a part of, which, listen, we're seeing that all over the place, right? We saw Chip Kelly do it. We've seen Gus Malzahn do it. We've seen Tony Bennett, the basketball coach at Virginia, Jim Larinaga, the basketball coach at Miami. They're all Nick Saban, they're all saying, to hell with this. I'm not doing this.
Right. How about Chip Kelly going to the NFL for $6 million a year as a coordinator?
Well, he hates recruiting.
He does.
So, he wants to coach ball. And listen, he knew at UCLA they were not going to go all in to give him the resources if they really truly wanted to compete, particularly when they moved into the Big Ten. He doesn't like recruiting. He just wants to coach X's and O's. That's what made the Ohio State thing such a heck of a gig for him.
Yeah, I think Kelly's laughing. You know, he's getting the last laugh. You're right. UCLA's never committed at all in anything. Even their basketball coach is finding that out. But for Kelly to go to Ohio State, get embarrassed by Michigan, and then make the adjustments in those few weeks into the college football playoff, and for Ohio State to do what they did on offense after the Michigan game, and then for him to parlay that back into the NFL as an offensive coordinator for $6 million a year, he hit the lottery. Tom Luginbill, don't you think?
He absolutely did, man. He played it perfectly. Got a national championship. Got a chance to go. Now they got to get a quarterback in Las Vegas. I mean, that's going to be the biggest challenge. He'll become a mere mortal too, just like everybody else. If you don't get one of those,
no doubt. Well, we'll talk more about that in the next couple of weeks. I know we hit a little bit of that with Cam Ward and Jackson Dart and so on, but that'll get heated back up again before we know it. We appreciate you doing this today at a different time, and we'll talk soon, my man. Thank you.
No problem, Bo. Thank you, bud. See you.
All right, so Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds show. Josh Sweat, they had number one on ESPN's rankings coming out of high school. He had a devastating injury his senior year, went to Florida State, couldn't get right until the very end of his career, and defensive lineman for the Philadelphia Eagles, 7 years in, dominates the Kansas City Chiefs last night and the offensive line and makes Patrick Mahomes' life hell, Jackson. I mean, how about that? Josh Sweat, 6 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, and 2 tackles for loss. Williams, Davis, Hunt, Sweat, all of them dominated up front for Philadelphia to win. The story was the Eagles' defense and Vic Fangio and the long time. He's been successful. Just, didn't make it as a head coach, but he's been a phenomenal defensive assistant and defensive coordinator for decades. And now he's the toast of football as the Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator. Kellen Moore, are you excited about Kellen Moore to the Saints now, Jackson? No, he says no. He's not excited about Kellen Moore to Houdat in the Big Easy. Let's talk about that on the other side. Justin Parker, Hail State pitching coach, will join us at 8:30. Also, Dogs and Rebs, 2 big road wins that came down to a basket. Unbelievable. Ole Miss threw theirs up with time expiring to beat LSU. And Mississippi State held on. That was a Q1 win. How about that? We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Back in a second.
Stand by for audio. Got it.
It's 8 a.m., and you're tuned to Mississippi's #1 choice for non-stop sports. The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds.
Where am I?
On the Zone 105.9 and online at thezone1059.com.
By the way, I'm a fan. By the way, I'm a fan. Good morning. Welcome in to the Out of Bounds Show. ESPN 105.9 The Zone.
I'm a real nice guy.
And the show is brought to you by Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. Amazing steaks, including the cuts, filet, New York strip, ribeye. They've got Stella Artois and a Tito's Espresso Martini for you, all at Kessler Prime in the Renaissance. Our big game coverage is brought to you by Stella Artois, and we'd love to hear from you this morning. We need another out-of-bounds roll call. Excuse me. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles deserve an out-of-bounds roll call, and A.J. Brown and Big Play Slay and Kenny Gainwell, among others. Good grief. Dominating performance. Josh Sweat, unreal what the Eagles and Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, did to the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, goodness.
It's really despicable.
Well, maybe it is.
It's really despicable.
So the Mac Hike Auto Group text line, 601-885-3776. We'd like to know if you're streaming or listening on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Where are you listening from? And either you may not have a takeaway on the game or feel like giving one because it was such a blowout, or maybe just the best food you had yesterday. I saw smoked brisket, I saw mac and cheese, and somebody did some crab legs, which sounds amazing. Speaking of crab legs, has Jameis Winston stole the show in media? I mean, is that guy unbelievable or what? I mean, he was taxiing people around New Orleans. I wish I would have, I saw it afterwards. Here I was walking around New Orleans for 2 days, and I made the long walk from Gree on Magazine Street all the way back into the city. Had I known, I would have tried to flag down Jameis Winston and hung out with him for the afternoon before going to Dak Prescott's party. But, I mean, Jameis Winston is turning – you see that every now and then, a guy who's got such a crazy fun personality, and people just love him. This guy is going to make a fortune. He's going up – he's so accessible. He'll talk to anybody, anywhere, about anything, and Jameis Winston's about to be the next star. If he wants to be. He may just want to dabble and then do other things. It's all about, now, regardless of who you are, you got to do it, a lot. But, and he's still got some playing, by the way, left in him. People love to take shots at him, but he's actually played some good football at times in his career. And the
winner.
And the Saints thing the last couple of years, I mean, the transition from Sean Payton to Dennis Allen just,
could have held him.
Wasn't ideal. It's like the transition from Dan Mullen to Joe Moorhead. Absolute disaster. Or Rick Stansberry to Rick Ray, right? Or David Cutcliffe to Ed Ogeron. I mean, I could go on and on here, right? I mean, the Freeze to Matt Luke thing wasn't pretty, but at least Matt Luke and Jacob Peeler and Derek Nix, what did they do? They loaded the boat for Lane Kiffin.
Recruited.
I mean, Lane Kiffin walked into a ready-made, ready-to-win roster, and give Lane credit, he took advantage. But the one thing you can say about Matt Luke, savage as far as recruiter, and ran circles around Joe Moorhead. But back to Jameis Winston, this guy is a maniac in a good way. He's got this amazing, love life personality. Yeah. He's visiting with everybody in New Orleans. He's picking people up and taking them to their bars and hotels. He's been a how about this? A pretty damn good QB in the NFL, which is saying a lot, by the way. That bar is, think about all the guys who have been drafted in the first round who were not any good the last 10 to 15 years. So he was pretty damn good to good at the Buccaneers at times and pretty damn good to good at the Saints at times. And
them dubs, man.
Yeah.
He got big-time W's when he wasn't supposed to get them. He's had plenty of years where he's thrown and thrown and thrown.
Yeah.
He may have 30,
and also carried.
Picks. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's been a lot of guys that we consider unbelievable that threw a ton of picks. Twitter handle @BowBounds, brought to you by Superior Foundation. If you need French drains or foundation repairs, Superior. Call them today. They're local. Their work comes with a warranty. They'll get you a quote in 48 hours, not 3 weeks. Superior.ms. Superior Foundation. What you got, Double Down?
He threw for 5,100 yards and 33 tutties in 19. I mean, the dude had a good season. Now he had 30 picks, but he still slung it. I mean, 5,000 yards is a lot.
You know what I think about picks a lot of times.
Yeah, but, I mean.
Sometimes they don't matter. Sometimes they do. It's kind of like fielding in baseball. Speaking of, Justin Parker will join us at 8:30, Hail State pitching coach. Go ahead.
Does Mike Evans send him a check for getting him in the Hall?
Oh.
Because Mike Evans is going to be in the Hall, no doubt. But
sure he is. I mean, 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons for the former Texas A&M Aggie.
And 6 of those were Jameis.
I don't know. Does he send his checks to Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, or Tom Brady?
Not Johnny. Johnny got him there. Right? Yeah.
I'm just being funny with that. I mean, they played college together, and they played really well together.
Oh, Mike wouldn't have been the first-round pick without Johnny.
Yeah, look, they were awesome that year that they beat Bama and went 11-2. And if we had a college football or even a Final Four,
right.
But if we had a college football playoff, I think they win it. They were left out because they lost that game early. Well, they lost 2 early. Right. They actually lost to a Will Muschamp Florida Gators team. Now, that was when Will had a ferocious top 10 defense at Florida. They couldn't score because Will didn't know who to hire on offense, and he wanted to strangle the offense as the head coach / defensive specialist. But if they don't get knocked in the nose early, they win it all. Remember, they boat raced Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl to go 11-2. One of those things. But they lost to LSU in Florida that year. If they played them again, who knows? But it is what it is.
So you're saying if Jameis could get Antonio Brown right, the two of them could have a wonderful podcast?
Oh, my God. I don't
know if
I don't
too
know.
Big? They're too big of personalities each.
Well, no, you need a host to throw it off to Jameis Winston so that you can at least stay on track to a certain extent.
No doubt.
You know, you need a guy to drive the podcast or show.
You need a quarterback.
And then tee Jameis up.
No doubt.
But I almost wonder if Jameis always has to be mobile. Like, I don't know if his show has to be out on the sidewalk in a city, in a neighborhood at all times. I don't know. Again, I don't know him at all, but I don't know if he can sit in a cool room and do a show and still come up with all of his stuff. I think he's brilliant. Maybe
great
on the spectrum, and there's nothing wrong with that,
right.
But I think he's brilliant.
He'd be great for SNL. Right? I mean, send him out.
You could do so many things with him because he's so talented. The Stella Artois caller line is 601-707-3750. Hail State pitching coach Justin Parker at 8:30 on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line.
By the way, I'm a fan.
A.J. Brown, Super Bowl champion.
By the way, I'm a fan.
Big play Slay, Super Bowl champ.
By the way, I'm a fan.
And Kenny Gainwell, Super Bowl champion.
By the way, I'm a fan.
And somebody texted in Fabian Lovett from DeSoto County. Was he on the active roster?
By the way, I'm a fan.
Okay.
By the way,
all
I'm
right,
a fan.
I know who was on the active roster. A.J. Brown, Big Play Slay. They were both behind Sirianni when he got doused with Gatorade or whatever it was in the it was Gatorade. So there, boom. And congratulations to A.J. Brown from Starkville, Mississippi, went to Ole Miss. Big Play Slay talked about last week in the media that he was placed in junior college out of high school by Mississippi State, and then he went on to MSU to play under Dan Mullen. And then he was with the Lions. He didn't catch the Lions when they were good, like Dan Campbell.
Right.
He caught the Lions when it was whatever. And then he goes to the Eagles, and boom. He and A.J. were devastated a couple of years ago. Was that game 35-31? Something like that, right? 2 years ago when you remember the pic of Jalen looking, just
At the confetti.
yeah, I mean, like these guys talk about, it's unbelievable to win the game. It's devastating to lose the game. I thought Brady was sharing both experiences last night of the highest of the high. The highest of the high. I mean, winning the Super Bowl, being on stage, celebrating that night, the next day flying back, the next day the big party in the city, whether it's Boston or Philadelphia or Kansas City or wherever it is. All of that. And then the lowest of the low is losing that game. Think about how successful Mahomes and Chris Jones have been. And Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, the top 3 defensive coordinator of all time, the best the last 25 years. He actually lost a Super Bowl. The man's got Super Bowl rings on, 4 or 5 fingers?
Yep.
Between the Giants and the Chiefs. And Spags couldn't do anything last night because the Philadelphia Eagles defense put so much pressure on the Kansas City Chiefs offense, which in turn allowed the Philadelphia Eagles offense to have unbelievable opportunities all night and play downhill. But I thought Brady shared some, and there were some misses.
I thought it was good.
But he did share some good stories on that game and losing and winning in that game. And you think about A.J. Brown today, Big Play Slay, Saquon, Jalen Hurts, Josh Sweat. I didn't know Josh Sweat was the number 1 player in the country coming out of high school and had a devastating injury before going to Florida State and signing with Jimbo Fisher. And Tom Luginbill and ESPN had him number 1 and kept him number 1. Never could really get healthy at Florida State until the very end. And now think about his journey 7 years later in the NFL. He dominates last night. He absolutely dominated the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. Josh Sweat had 6 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3 QB hits, and 2 tackles for loss. He was the number 1 player who had a devastating injury his senior year in high school. Couldn't get it together for the most part at Florida State, or couldn't get healthy until the very, very end. And then now he's a Super Bowl champion and should have been Super Bowl MVP. Right? And the Eagles only had to rush 4.
That's crazy.
And drop 7. And they confused Mahomes. As Luginbill said, all that eye candy, all that stuff they were able to do because they only had to send. Vic Fangio said, hey, this is what we're going to do. I've got the talent on the defensive line between Josh Sweat and Davis and Williams and them, and we are going to dominate them. And they did. I mean, Mahomes was crushed last night. He had nowhere to go, and at times when he did get the ball out of his hands, it looked bad. It just goes to show you, it doesn't matter who you are. If you don't have any time and you're pressured nonstop, DeAndre Hopkins, Kelsey, you can have all these guys. What does that mean? They sent 4, dropped 7. They never had a prayer. Their offensive statistics were horrendous and didn't score till 3 minutes and change going into halftime. I thought for a second they were going to goose egg them, and then they got rolling. I mean, they didn't get rolling, but they put up some points. It was long over. A.J. Brown, Super Bowl champ. He was getting fired up early. He and Sirianni they both run hot.
Yeah.
And that happens in business, in businesses, whatever business, tech, law, construction, and a lot of times it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But A.J. Brown was early in the game was Now he got hosed on the pass interference call. It was not pass interference. That's where I liked where Tom Brady came out immediately and said that's not. Some analysts aren't willing to go that far that quick, especially in a big game, because the NFL wants you to cater to them and do everything their way. But if you notice, there were 2 calls early in the game, and Brady was like, "Those are bogus." And they brought in Mike Peoria or whatever the dude's name is, I can't remember, and he was like, and he actually agreed. A.J. Brown, they called him on a push off. That would have been a first down and a big play for the Eagles. And I thought, here we go again.
Right.
The Chiefs are going to take advantage, and they're going to get about three really good calls go their way, and they're going to win this game 30-24, 23, and we're all going to say what might have been on a couple of plays. And that was not a push-off on A.J. Brown.
No.
Is he a physical receiver? Hell yeah, he is.
It's just full.
But he got a little frustrated, and Sirianni gave it right back to him on the sideline. And then what happened?
Doink.
Well, the next series, A.J. catches a touchdown, and he's all happy and okay again. But A.J.'s just one of those receivers that runs hot and lets everybody know that he's mad on the sideline if he's not getting the football. He's also a great player.
Great reader.
And they also had the defensive performance was insane. If I would have told you that Mahomes would have had 2 picks, thrown the ball at people's feet, thrown the ball, how many yards was that behind Kelsey? I don't know, 3? Which for Mahomes is like 30, is accurate and good as he is. You'd have said you're crazy. He took 6 sacks. I mean, he was running for his life. And a lot of times it works for Mahomes, but it didn't last night. The Eagles took the right angles, and that's easy for me to say because he's so slippery, but the Eagles took the right angles.
What are the
Did you bet on the game?
I did not. I didn't get it in. I told you I would have had it too.
You were eating ice cream, you told me. I texted you. I said, are you at a Super Bowl party? You said, I didn't wake up till 3 o'clock yesterday.
That's right.
And you started, you basically had a big bucket of ice cream.
That's right.
That you sent me.
Yep. Finish that bucket off.
And what was it called? Ooey Gooey Mooey?
Oh, that's Ooey Gooey Butter Cake.
Ooey Gooey Butter Cake. Does this surprise you that I've never had that?
Honestly, yes. It does because it is a New Orleans snack staple.
I did not know that.
So when you were younger, yes, it does surprise me.
Okay. Did you know that I bought a slice of king cake Friday morning when we were doing the show from the coffee shop around the corner where I was staying, and it was chocolate king cake.
The heat.
Let me just tell you something. I didn't eat it all, but I ate a couple of bites. It was delicious.
That's what I figured.
By the way, Beagle Bagel in Madison has king cakes. Come get you one. Justin Parker, Hail State pitching coach, next. All right. Whoa. Opening weekend. College baseball. Duty Noble Field. Time to get the grills rolling and pack the park. Excitement. 56-game stretch. I hope everybody's ready. We are. We are the Out of Bounds Show. ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Our interview this morning is brought to you by two brothers in the historic Cotton District, Awesome Bar and Restaurant, and their new sister restaurant, Older Brother Bistro. And it's fantastic. I've told you about the Reuben and the muffaletta and the deviled eggs drizzled with honey and bacon. All of it's delicious. Older Brother and two brothers, before or after Hail State baseball throughout the, winter and spring. We want to welcome in Hail State pitching coach Justin Parker to the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Justin joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Good morning. How you doing, Justin Parker?
Bo, I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm excited. You guys get it rolling this weekend, and so everybody's fired up and pumped up for Mississippi State baseball. Do you feel like you're ready?
You know what? Normally, you're always begging for a couple extra weeks, just especially as a pitching coach, just trying to get these guys on ramped and get the volume up. But I like the work that our group's put in. We've started a little early with a lot of the on-ramping stuff, so I feel good about it as far as the preparation and the guys being ready. So we're excited. Yeah, we're excited to get going and play somebody else.
How has he finished the year really strong under you and for the team? How is Pico Khan? How did he look in the fall and the last 4 to 6 weeks, Justin?
Really, I thought just even going back to last year, what he did was really really impressive and was huge for us down the stretch to kind of come back and rehab and go through that whole process, but also simultaneously kind of rework his delivery to try to avoid some of those maybe injury or arm dependent type stuff moving into the future. So I was really thrilled to get him back. And of course he was a guy that, had a chance to sign and bet on himself and bet on us and felt like he had unfinished business here. So he's kind of had that chip on his shoulder and I love where he's at right now. The last probably 3 or 4 weeks has been the best baseball I've seen him throw. The velocity's been up, the command's been better, the secondary arsenal's better. The delivery is a lot cleaner. And so I still think they're like this past weekend, I think, the past 2 weekends, he's been good and there's even a better version of him in there. So he's got a chance to be special if he keeps getting better, which will be kind of our theme as a group throughout the year. Just because we're heading up on opening day Friday doesn't necessarily mean, we're locked in and ready, just to kind of roll with it. We're going to get better as a group and he's going to get better individually along the way. Much like I thought, especially the starting rotation did last year with guys like Cal Steven and Durangelo, of course, like getting better every time out to where they're pitching their best baseball in May versus February.
Yeah, what you did with those two guys, I mean, Steven and Durangelo, even Auger on the back half, unreal how he threw late. Justin Parker, Hail State pitching coach on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Justin, we had Stone Simmons on the show last week. I was so impressed with this young man. I had never interviewed him before. I know all about him. And I know he's been through a lot, but man, he's mature. His personality, his positive approach. Talk a little bit about you coaching him through this rehab and development and where he is going into opening weekend after 2+ years off.
Yeah, well, I wish I could take more credit, for a lot of that stuff, but his character and who he is and how he's been brought up, like he's just an A+ kid and he's an adult. So a lot of the stuff that you see and that draws your attention towards him, like he's just a wonderful kid and a really, really good leader, a positive leader. He's been like that in our program, the past, I guess, 2+ years, even being hurt. He's got incredible experience. He's the only active member that we have still from the 21 national championship team. So, all those things that like my concern, or just at least my patience with this group has to be, I like the group. I like the depth. And I liked his stuff, and it's a little unproven. And I think that's kind of the world we live in now with the transfer portal and with just kind of the transient roster building, where I have a lot of freshmen and young kids that I really, really like. I have guys coming back off of injury that I really, really like. And you have guys from other programs that have done it at other places in front of, a different type of fan base, whether it's mid-major guys or even, we've got some other, Power 5, but pitching in the SEC is a little bit different. Pitching on the road in the SEC is a little different. And so Stone, to just be able to kind of, help these guys with all the things that come along with the pressures and those kind of things, like, it's been huge for us. And I've got such respect for him, just one, because I love the way he carries himself, the way he works. It's been really cool to watch him and his stuff grow. I'm watching video with him the other day in the lab before our work, and I think it was like 21 or 22 before he had the injury. He's like 90 to 92, maybe touching 93 right now. I knock on wood, but he just finished up a really clean 3-inning stint yesterday where he's 94, 96, and got some of the best command we have. And so it's refreshing to have a guy have that kind of story and come out the other end. We're hoping he stays healthy. He's certainly, you would hope, he's earned the right after all this to kind of, play this thing out. But he's just a tremendous, regardless of how good he is, he's a tremendous impact for a lot of the rest of the group.
A super young man. We're visiting with Justin Parker, Hail State pitching coach, on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Play Dancing Rabbit Golf Club before or after Hail State baseball games throughout the spring. Lamona's mentioned Carson Ligon last week, and he threw for you last year, transfer from Miami. He's another older dude. Talk a little bit about his preseason and how you feel he's doing to date.
Man, I love Carson. I love another guy that's got a really unique story, just as kind of the things that he's been through, overcoming some injury, transferring mid-college career, having a really successful, fairly decorated career at Miami, coming in here and dealing with some adversity. So I love where he's at. He's another kid, very similar to Pico, where had a chance to leave and sign this past summer, felt like he had more to prove and wanted to do it here, believed in what we're doing. You're going to look at the arsenal, look at the stuff, look at the velocities, and I mean it's all really, really good across the board. We're still tinkering with this stuff a little bit, just trying to find a little bit more effectiveness with the fastball. He'll run it up to 98 or 99 mile an hour, and
wow.
We're kind of trying to run him through a little bit more of a sinker instead of a four-seamer. So, another guy that my expectation is just that he gets better every time out. What you may see on opening weekend, hopefully looks a little different than what you see down the stretch. So, but I just watch his work every day. It's another adult. It's a guy that comes in. He's very routine and structure driven. It's so consistent day in and day out. And, that type of consistency and stability in his work, gives him, Coach Lamonis, a lot of confidence that that's the type of consistency that you're going to end up seeing in his outings. And, maybe a little bit different last year where he went through a lot of changes. My first year here, his first year here. He's very stubborn in a good way. Like I love coaching that kind of kid because, they're strong-willed and they're competitors and they believe in what they're doing. This year I feel like he's a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable with what he's doing. And he's going to be able to go out there, just with a little bit clearer mind and pitch and execute and compete.
He is Justin Parker, Hail State pitching coach on the Out of Bounds show, and they get started this weekend. Everybody's excited. And you look at what he did with Cal Steven and Gerangelo, among others. And the Hail State fan base is super fired up. And the grills will be rolling midday on Friday. And rain, shine, or 30 degrees, they're going to be out there partying foul pole to foul pole, as Justin Parker knows. All right, so let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum here. We just went veteran heavy. Tell me, and I'm already receiving texts for all these players. We're not going to be able to get to all of them on the text line. Charlie Foster. So you've got guys that have been around that you just walked us through with Pico and Stone and Carson. Then you got guys that are still trying to figure out where the union is on campus because they're so young.
Yeah.
And exactly, ordering food and so on. Charlie Foster, left-hander. People are excited about him. Tell us a little bit about his game and his style, Coach.
A big left-hander, not scared. Came from a really decorated high school program. Had three, included, three SEC pitchers on his high school team. He was the ace. And just his recruitment was very unique as well. He was committed to Georgia for a long time, and just with the world we live in now, we were able to get him as a decommit later in the process. I went over and met with him and watched him throw a lighter bullpen, and it's just easy to see like the poise he has and the confidence and maturity, and very, very excited about Charlie. Feel like he's going to be a major piece of this right from the beginning. One of the more mature freshmen, I've coached. He's got a big fastball. It's probably maybe 92 to 95, and it plays even a little bit bigger. So it's a guy that we have a lot of confidence in already, and he'll be a big piece of what we do this spring.
All right. Transfer Noah Sullivan, who was mentioned last week by Lamonis. It looks like he's going to be how do you handle that? He's a two-way player, so he's got a lot on him. You get him some, Gotro and the crew get him some, but he's obviously got some pretty insane talent there, right, Coach?
Yeah, every two-way guy is a little bit unique, with how they handle the workload, and then of course some of it is dependent on what their role specifically is going to be on both sides. So Sully is a guy that, again, we're getting an adult. Like, we're getting a guy that's done it at a super high level on both sides of the ball for his entire college career at USC Upstate. He's a guy that I competed against when I was at South Carolina, so I know like how fierce he is in the batter's box. I know how mature he is as a hitter. And it's a guy that's like incredibly low maintenance. So, we're able to really kind of probably on the pitching side, he's a lot lower maintenance. He's with Goat and the crew a lot offensively. He factors in probably to hit in the middle of our order and be with them every day. And I just get him kind of on the side and just kind of more maintenance work. He's such a wonderful kid, such an easy kid, such a good leader. Again, another kid that's been through some adversity with some injuries, has performed at a super high level at the mid-major level and been an incredible performer. He's a good leader. He's got great perspective. And he's a guy that I think he'll tell you this too, mentally and competitively, he's now prepared, for this level where, a lot of kids as freshmen and young players to come into the SEC and, deal with 95-mile-an-hour fastballs every day in practice, and it just hits are few and far between at times. Like, Sully is a guy that now kind of understands, how hard this game is to play and how to ride the waves a little bit, and it's just a really good presence for us in our clubhouse.
Justin Parker on the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. How do you, like this week going into starting to play, do you adjust your working with them? I mean, how does this go? Or does it depend on guys that you're going to depend on early, are going to throw a lot? How do you balance that, Justin?
Yeah, I'm just trying to go into this week, really this past weekend, and kind of stack the deck the way I needed it to be able to let guys get the work in. For example, we still had Carson, Ligon, and Pico Khan throwing on Fridays in the scrimmage, and then if we have to push guys back, we can do that. It's easier to push them back than push them up. And then, really it's just by guy, who needs what, how much work do they need, how much do we need to see out of them. I kind of went into last weekend thinking we'd be playing an additional scrimmage tomorrow, but I really feel like we probably saw what we needed to see, and we'll just get those guys a good, healthy bullpen this week to keep them sharp, and we'll have everybody locked and loaded and ready to go on Friday. And then, the thing that if you look at our schedule, probably different than a lot of guys in our situation, like right out of the gate, we're on the road to a really good Southern Miss on Tuesday. We play a really good Missouri State team coming in for a 3-game series. They're projected to win their league and have a ton of preseason accolades, especially with their offense. And then, going to Houston week 3 to play Oklahoma State, Arizona, and Rice. Like we have a lot of those tests built into our schedule early. So, maybe normally you're kind of thinking, let's get guys volume and let's get the innings up and the workloads up and get ready for SEC play. Well, there's a little bit more strategy in it for us just to be able to have guys kind of ready in certain days. And, a little bit more strategy in regard to that. So, we're working through those things right now. I think again, I may need to knock on wood saying this, but I do love the depth of our group. I think the strength is through the depth. Where last year, and I didn't know this going into opening day, but, we ended up getting 6, 7, sometimes 8 innings every Friday and Saturday night, which is an incredible feat and kept everybody kind of fresh. But I think this year, the strength of it is going to be the versatility and the depth. And so I haven't been as concerned with getting volumes up, knowing that I want to get a lot of guys out there early, and there's a lot, big time opportunities to do that against good ball clubs. So that's kind of how we're balancing that right now, just making sure everybody is prepared to do whatever we're going to ask them to do. And that way, they can pitch with the highest level of confidence and hopefully have success early and ride that into the league play.
Yeah, that is a challenging schedule early. I mean, good grief. Going to Southern Miss next week in Hattiesburg, and you mentioned Missouri State. It's on early for you guys. Justin Parker, Hail State pitching coach on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. All right, the texts are rolling in. So what about Chase Hungate from Virginia and Gavin Black? How have they looked the last few weeks, Coach?
And they both look great. I like where they're at. Chase is so poised. Again, sometimes you go into the transfer portal and you don't necessarily know what you're getting and how they're going to acclimate to this level. Chase was about as much of a plug and play as you're going to find, just with the role that he pitched in. The Virginia team that we, of course, saw up close and personal and got to face Chase. So you were getting easy strikes. You're getting a unique look. Coach Lamonis and I are both a big fan of, as you saw last year, just the utility of having a guy like a Cam Schulke. We felt like Chase Hungate, and we actually have another guy named Kevin Minnell that both are lower slot right-handers that have experience and are really, really tough to hit, especially right on right. I actually feel like these two guys that I have this year are even a little bit probably more effective versus left-handers than Cam was at times. So we're very excited about Chase. And then the growth that I've seen out of Gavin Black. Gavin Black had 3 outstanding preseason outings. He's carried over the late season success he had for us into the summer and really into this fall and this spring. And he's, I got big expectations for him. I think he's a guy that his arsenal has grown to where, you can get an extended outing out of him. He could potentially even start at some point. I'm not sure, what we're going to do opening weekend. We got a meeting here in about 20 minutes to go over that. But Gavin's a guy that can do a lot of different things. He's a competitor. He's got big-time right-handed velocity. His arsenal has grown. He's got 3 or 4 pitches that he can use in the flow of a game. And so both guys are going to be heavily depended on and relied on in our bullpen probably immediately, just as veterans. And you just, again, it's the poise. It's the comfort level of just having a guy that's been out there and he's not going to be overwhelmed early.
Man, Gavin Black looked good late last year. Wow. I mean, he was – you know all about it. I'm just watching on TV sipping on a beer, but, man, his stuff looked filthy late in the year. He was fun to watch. Justin Parker, Hail State pitching coach on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by Mississippi's College Town. Enjoy the amazing restaurants, amenities, and hotels in Starkville this weekend as baseball season and opening weekend this weekend gets kicked off. All right, Ross Highfield. Last year he was hurt. He was a big-time player coming out of high school. He was thrown in the mix before you got here and actually played well as a freshman. He can do it behind the plate, at the plate. Talk a little bit about what he brings to the table as the catcher for your staff, Justin.
Man, he's been terrific in the preseason. It's an incredibly dynamic player, a game-changing player in all 3 areas. Of course, offensively, he's a really dynamic weapon. He's a good runner. Very, very similar offensive skill set to Dakota Jordan, where there's a ton of hits in there just because of his speed and his athleticism. There's a ton of power in there. He hits the ball to all fields. Defensively, it's a game changer as a thrower. He's really gotten a lot better. I think, if you look at him and you turn on the tape from 23 to now, if you see him as a defender, I mean, it's night and day different. He's really embraced the position. He really, in fairness to him too, in high school, he was a terrific athlete. and played all over the place, but wasn't a primary catcher. He caught, of course, but like to be thrown into the mix as a freshman in the SEC, it's just crazy difficult to handle that challenge mentally. And what he is doing now as playing that position cerebrally, he's grown night and day. And then as a base runner, he's probably our most dynamic base runner. He's our most dynamic base stealer. He's a guy that can really apply pressure to the opposing team in all three of those ways. So, I'm glad he's back and healthy and all those things. And, he's had a terrific preseason and has done a great job of handling our staff.
All right, Justin Parker, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. It sounds like you feel like you have more options, maybe starters, mid-relief, and closing this year. I know you had a really good staff last year. You were super excited. So many guys got better and better, which is what you want over the course of February through June. But you seem to be excited about your group in your room.
I like the depth. And like I said, I got to knock on wood, and you, of course, want to see these guys compete and get out there in the arena and do it. But I think the biggest challenge will be is figuring out what's the right mix, what's the right, what are the right roles for these guys, and then allow them to grow within that role. That'll be our challenge early is just to, see what they all look like out there and put them in the right order and put them in the right spots. And, you hope to keep everybody fresh by doing that, where, there's times where you probably wear a bullpen down, just not having the options. But that's where we're at right now with it. I feel good about the depth. It's nice knowing that you're not going to have to get 85 or 90 pitches out of your starters on opening weekend and push them in the cold weather. So that's exactly right. I do like the depth. I like the work. I don't want to say easier because it's never easy, but having guys like Stone Simmons, having guys like Carson Ligon and Pico Khan and Gavin Black, bringing in a group of veterans like Jacob Pruitt and Chase Hungate, it's allowed our group to grow faster and make my job a little bit easier to have, peer leadership in the room. So a lot of the things that I was doing last year at this time, just continuing to teach and coach, I have a lot of extensions of me now with those leaders and those guys. So I'm excited about it. It's been a really fun group to coach. So I'm excited to watch them go out and compete.
Love it. Justin Parker, Hail State pitching coach on the Out of Bounds Show. Thanks so much, Justin. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Bo. Hail State.
He joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Go local, go with the home team, as Jake Mangum likes to tell us. That was Justin Parker talking about this staff going into opening weekend. And, yes, we will continue to cover college baseball throughout the week. Plenty of SEC hoops to get to, too, in which Jackson Meadows and I will jump into coming up next. But this is intriguing. I mean, Parker had a big-time successful year last year. And look at all those guys who made a ton of money after a year with him. A lot of them coming out of nowhere. Super impressed. I'm also impressed with the wings at Two Brothers and the Reuben at Older Brother in Starkville. Back in a second.
Say, kids, what time is it?
It's 9 a.m. and this ain't okay show. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. As Mississippi's #1 morning show rolls on the Zone 105.9 and online at thezone1059.com.
I just got Jackson Meadows a slice of king cake from Beagle Bagel in Madison. This guy is so happy. He's like you remember Christmas? Santa Claus when you were 6 years old or 7 years old, and how excited you were when your eyes popped open? That's where straight funk Jackson Meadows is right now, as he's about to tear into some king cake from Beagle Bagel in Madison. They've got slices, but they also have them. They sell king cakes, which are great. Pick one up, take it to a client, pick one up, feed your office. Beagle Bagel in Madison. We're right above it here in Madison on 463. Good morning. Welcome in. We are the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN.
A guy named Sliced Bread.
And we're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app and the zone1059.com. And the show is brought to you by Eye Care Professionals. If you need cataract surgery, call Eye Care Professionals and Dr. Kirk Jeffries or any of the physicians at Eye Care Professionals. 2 locations on Lakeland Drive, one in Jackson and one in Flowood, Belmead. Eye Care Professionals, cataract surgery. All right. What do you think? How you feel about it?
What did I just put in my mouth?
Excellent.
What in the world?
Was it yummy?
That is not a regular king cake. I've had many king cakes.
And that's fabulous?
I don't know what it is about.
Well, I mean, you got to understand, Morris is the bagel king. I want you to understand that he's lived in this space. I mean, how many millions, not thousands, millions of bagels has he done the last 14 years at Beagle Bagel? Okay?
He is the bagel king.
He is.
Yeah, there's no question.
So this is in the same vein, so it's not surprising what he can do with the king cake from Beagle Bagel in Madison.
It just feels like
I saw your face, by the way.
I don't get it.
Well,
that's something I get sweets.
I know you do.
I would consider myself
you're an
professional.
aficionado.
I would. Yes.
You're like Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, on defense. That's you on sweets.
And I don't like chocolate very much. I do not like chocolate. That is chocolate I like.
Awesome.
I can't believe that. It's like the inside of a king cake can be done very poorly sometimes.
Right.
Especially when you go to heat it up. You know, when you heat up a sweet that's even like a donut, for example. If you heat it up, you never know. If you heat it up a little too much, it gets that little hard bread type deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I know. I nailed it because I only put it in there for 15 seconds.
15. I was going to ask. I got to write that down. I need 15 seconds.
I wasn't going to charge for
it. That is, I appreciate that. That's knowledge you could charge for.
King cake, thumbs up?
Both. 2 of them.
Okay.
If I had 3,
well, you got another slice for the road, so you're good.
Oh, I'm set.
You're good.
Golly.
Speaking of a big weekend, Mississippi State and Ole Miss got 2 huge road wins. MSU beat Georgia at Georgia. Ole Miss beat LSU at LSU. They both could have lost. Ole Miss was down. Ole Miss came 11-0 run. 11-0. You know what A&M did to them a couple weeks ago? They flipped that on LSU. How about that? And then they threw one up with time running out and won. And that's just a hard-fought victory that you got to have against an LSU team that brought it. They're not going to quit, even though they only have 1 win. I watched that game. LSU really had their way with Ole Miss a lot of the night. And then Ole Miss just, boom, turned it on, closed the game out. LSU totally fell apart the last 2 minutes of the game. You make the run, and you win. It's a big win. Every win. Look at what happened again over the weekend. We just don't know. I mean, Auburn lost at home to Florida. I told y'all they were about to lose. I mean, you can't do it. You can't do 18 games in this league as good as they are. I've been able to watch them. We went down to Auburn. They absolutely smoked Mississippi State. I'm talking about it was 10-0 before I could even have a sip of Diet Coke. I did have a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Nice.
But it was 10-0. I mean, Auburn just put it on them. Florida goes to Auburn and wins, which, by the way, they come to the hump Tuesday. It's a quick turnaround. Both teams. But tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, at the hump, Mississippi State, Florida. My point is, you're looking at some scores and we're trying to make sense of it. There is none. There's just a lot of really good teams. And you cannot play your A game every night. Hell, you can't. Sometimes when your legs are dead, you can't play your B game. The Mac Hike Auto Group text line, 601-885-3776. And then Mississippi State goes on. If they hit free throws, they win by 8. But you won. And it was a quad 1 win. It's a Georgia team. How well had Georgia played at home? Exactly. Unbelievable. And you tried to pull away, couldn't, whatever. You do need to shoot free throw, but I got to give you credit. You made plays. You made plays. I thought Chris Jans described it the right way. It was a rock fight at the end. And your team, who I thought could have played a little more physical at times, I thought Jans was right in the post game. I mean, you just had to, it was body blow to body blow. I mean, it just came down to an old-fashioned, go out the back door, out in the gravel parking lot, fight. And that's what it was. And you showed a lot of physicality. And you did what you needed to do. So a win's a win at home, but a win on the road, those are precious at Georgia and at LSU. So, and Mississippi State, we talked about Ole Miss playing with a little bit of house money. Mississippi State had to have that win on the road. Quad 1. Georgia was unreal at home all year, and they got beat. And look, they felt like they were winning that game. Now, I give you credit for at least getting out and getting up and doing what you needed to do. And Nwoko, the first 4 possessions? Would he score your first 9 points of the game? I thought Hubbard did a great job. They decided to double him, so he gave the Brock up early to get going on the road. That was big. As big as Davis is for, we've talked about Kugel as the X factor for Mississippi State. Hubbard's he's awesome. Murphy is just getting better. There's some other guys that still aren't playing up to snuff. And Ole Miss has had the same thing too. But I thought getting up early in Athens against a Georgia team that was dominant at home and getting Nwoko involved was huge for you. And he just ripped off whatever it was, 9 points, 11 points out of the gate. And then you had some other people, get rolling, including Hub. Davis, I thought it was Padula, and he's good, and I love his game, and he plays downhill, and he's very aggressive, and he attacks, and he can handle the ball, and he's really physical with his butt and legs, kind of like Hubbard. But, it comes down to Davis. It does. And that's the way I see it, Jackson Meadows. But they're 2 good road wins because look at what else happened. All right, again, Florida went into Auburn and was like, we'll take it. I think Davis and Kugel are the X factors for Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Kugel still needs to get rolling. Davis went wild where he wasn't rolling, but he dropped 22 and 7 on LSU, and they needed every bit of it. I like Padula's game. He's filthy. And Hub is heated back up. I never doubted him. We're driven by Mack Hike Auto Group. Text line 601-885-3776. Oh. Hey, ladies, if you're looking at picking up a happy for your guy for Valentine's Day, the Rogue Men's Store in Jackson. First of all, they're throwing up some awesome pics on Instagram, so follow the Rogue on Instagram or Facebook. But the Peter Millar that they have, super sharp, and they just posted a bunch of pics of their shoes. I got a pair of Martin Dingham a couple of weeks ago. I love them. And, man, these shoes are really good looking. Martin Dingham shoes, and then Wolf and Shepherd, and Peter Millar at the Rogue. The Rogue just renovated so they moved. They just moved up in the building. Totally renovated. It's like, it's open and light and great colors. And because Spring Street Cigars is going to go where they were. So they're in the same building. You know, you still have the Rogue, Nukes, and now you're going to have Spring Street Cigars in 2 months, right? So, or we're hoping April. That'd be phenomenal. I can't wait to go and smoke a cigar there and hang out. But the Rogue it's newly renovated. So it's literally at the front of the building on I-55. You walk in the door, you walk in the Rogue Men's Store. And it's a great place to just go pick up a piece of Peter Millar for your husband or boyfriend for Valentine. Make it easy. I mean, they've got it right there. You see a pullover, boom. Shirt, good. And Luke's supposed to join us in studio, but we got a remote tomorrow, so I probably should have booked him for 9:30 today. I kind of I wasn't sure what was going. I wasn't sure with our two guests what was happening as the weekend was unfolding. I knew we wanted to have Justin Parker on, pitching coach at Mississippi State, because of what he did last year. Driving Cal Steven and Gerangelo to make a ton of money. Among how many other pitchers got? It was insane. And again, your ace, Nate Dome, never threw. And you won 40 games and were within a whisker of a super regional. I mean, I thought Justin Parker, no, I didn't think. Lamonis, Parker, and Gautreaux did a hell of a job and you lost your catcher who could be a first-round pick? I mean, what? I mean, you played a couple of dirtbags who I give all the credit in the world, but they were Southeast Louisiana players. And there's nothing wrong with that. I couldn't play at Southeast Louisiana. But that's what you have. I mean, Ross Highfield may go in the top 20 of the draft. He didn't play one pitch. Nate Dome threw like 4 innings. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it wasn't much. And then you won 40 games. And when people actually have tried to tell me that they didn't have a good year last year, I'm like, dude, you've lost. If you think they've got to go to the College World Series every year, I know you want them to have a good year. And I understand the run that they made over 10 years was unbelievable, how many appearances and then the national championship and how many guys Cohen sent to Major League Baseball and then Lamonis. And it's insane. It's never been, no one else in the state's done it, even close. But 40 wins, coming within a whisker of the super regional, like a couple of pitches, that's a hell of and your starting catcher who could be first round and your ace didn't throw. That's unreal. I thought they did a hell of a job last year. Parker sounds excited. And look, Mike Bianco hired a pitching coach. There's a lot of excitement up at Ole Miss. It's been 2 rough seasons. It's funny how they both did the same thing. They both won a national championship and then had 2 rough seasons. Lamonis was able to come back with a 40-win season. Should have hosted, got hosed by a bunch of G5 ADs who have no business on the NCAA baseball committee. The biggest bunch of garbage nonsense I've ever seen in my life. East Carolina gave themselves a regional and then got bounced, which they deserved. Mm-hmm. And so now Bianco hires a pitching coach. Now we're going to see what happens there. He's got to win this year, kind of like Lamonis had to win last year, and then Lamonis dropped a 40 burger on everybody and beat a ton of teams, big wins, and so on. Now, Bianco's been on the hot seat 47 times since I've been on the air, because I've been on the air every year he's been on, a coach except 2. And then Coach Oz is new, and they had a good year, and there's high expectations down at Southern Miss. And Mississippi State goes down to Southern Miss next Tuesday and plays a Southern Miss team that's excited about their roster. So that's where we are. We've got 2 good basketball teams in the state.
By the way, I'm a fan.
And I don't know how good they're going to be, but they're in the toughest league in college basketball by a million miles. And we've got 3, maybe more, elite teams in Florida, Auburn, and Bama. And we'll see what happens with Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Ole Miss has gotten to the road game at Bama flipped their whole season, even though they had lost some games, before and after. You were like, okay, but they're all beat Kentucky at home. Net rankings look good. Mississippi State had to win last Saturday, Jackson, and they did. Both teams won by a whisker, and nobody. It's a win. You've already moved on to Vanderbilt and Florida. Florida at home tomorrow. Florida went into Auburn and won. Golly. I do have Ole Miss's schedule right. No, at South Carolina. My bad. My fault.
Biggest takeaway from the week.
That's a week from now. Next week that they go to Vandy. So they go to the Gamecocks, and they play at 6 on the SEC network. Ooh. And South Carolina's 0-10. That's beautiful for Ole Miss. This is a nice little run here. And then they get Mississippi State at home. They'll be favored. Then they go to Vandy and at Auburn. Okay. And at Florida still. All right. Well, it is what it is. That's the league. Sorry, Jackson, what?
Takeaway from the Super Bowl.
Give
me 3.
I know what this. Okay. I'll give it to you.
Let's hear it.
95% of the time, it's all about the defensive front in the Super Bowl. It was last night. The D-line and Vic Fangio were unbelievable. I never thought that I would see Mahomes that shell-shocked. I understand you're not going to play great every time. Peyton Manning's first Super Bowl win in the postseason, he threw 3 touchdowns and 7 picks in the postseason, leading the Colts to their first Super Bowl win. You're not going to play well every single time. However, I do agree with Brady that his footwork was a disaster last night, which surprises me as good as he is and as many years as he's been in the league, and he's coached by the best offensive coordinator probably in the history of the league in Andy Reid. So that did surprise. I cannot believe what they were able to do, working them, only rushing 4 and dropping 7. I cannot believe it. I can't believe that Mahomes didn't escape. They wouldn't let him. They kept tackling him, and some of them were shoestring, but they took the right angles even when Mahomes was dancing around. And even when he would shake free a little bit, either he threw poor, and again, it's not easy, but he threw a bad pass, not accurate, or his receivers let him, or tight ends let him down. And the shrimp and mushroom pasta that Wendy made, the shrimp and mushrooms from Mudbugs, was amazing. Angel hair.
Love angel hair.
I do too. I think it was National. What was it last week? Alfredo. Something. I have to go back and look. But I love pasta. I can't eat it that often, but I hammered it last night. It was game on. And then we had Cavalier Rotel, which was delicious too. Hey, speaking of, lunch today is brought to you by Burgers, Blues, and Barbecue in Flowood. Blue Plates and amazing burgers, including their smash burgers.